When you are in coherence, it means that you, as the clinician, are the instrument of that coherence, right? It means that because you have that coherence, anything you do will be in service of that. When you're out of sync, you could say, or not in integrity, or not in coherence, or not in resonance, then anything you do will miss the mark.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Qiological. There's no way to avoid this moment in time, the paths not taken that brought you to here, the experiences avoided, and those grasped with an eager willingness. Every moment turned away, and all those greeted with enthusiastic eyes, the failures that pushed you towards something better, and the successes that took you away from the errors and misfortunes of childhood. Everything sought and avoided, everything hoped for, and everything guarded against, all that felt like you at your core and all that was foreign as your immigrated ancestor. The present moment is not something that you can turn away from, even as you attempt to avert your vision. Life is a catastrophe in its ever-fleeting wash of cycles and tides, storms and calm, the moments of gathering contentment and those of chaotic dispersion. What do you hold on to, or perhaps better yet, let go of, to allow the unasked-for unfolding that's in front of you to find its way in, to allow a way into the yes to what you'd most like to avoid, to embrace the path you took to avoid your fate as the path that takes you directly to your destiny. How to stay awake when you'd most rather dream anything other than the problem before you. How do you stay present in the midst of uncertainty so as to harvest unrevealed opportunities? Just where does your courage come from when you're fresh out of ideas and your fears stand fiercely before you? The present moment is all we have. So often, it's fuel for our discontentment or a fleeting pleasure that's sliding out of our grasp. But somewhere in the middle, there is simply this moment, with all the catastrophe that has brought us to here and all the potential that awaits your attentive presence. Patients show up in our clinic with a story and snapshot of who they are, and part of our job is to get a glimpse of the movie, to see something of the path they've trod that brings them to where they are right now. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lyle, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AcuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit acufastneedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
In this conversation with Josephine Spilka, we discuss the ancestral influences that come through the 8 extraordinary vessels, how the divergent channels protect us, perhaps for an entire lifetime, from the influences that could severely damage or kill us, and how the law help us through the bumps and the turns of life so that we can manage. I never know where a conversation with Josephine will go, but I do know we will cover some worthwhile terrain. Let's get into this. Josephine Spilka, welcome to Geological.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Always good to have you here. I should say welcome back to Geological. You've been here a couple of times. You helped to kick the podcast off 5-ish years ago. We did a episode, I think it's number 2 actually.
Yep.
On the divergent channels.
Yeah. People still talk about that sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's something I want to talk about more at some point because I still only barely grasp this stuff. But that's not what we're here for today. And this is like the funnest thing about the podcast. You know, it's unscripted. We're just going to take a topic and we're going to run. The heart in the clinic. I love it that we can just grab a topic like this and see how it wants to unwind. Not unlike doing a treatment. Step in somewhere, see what happens. So, heart in the clinic. We had some conversation before sitting down here over some time. And one of the things about clinic to me that's so incredible, it's such a privilege to get to do the work. There's all the technique that we bring to it. There's all the knowledge that we bring to it. But there's also this thing about who we are and how we are.
Yes.
That's a whole other piece.
I just keep going back to the thing about the heart, as opposed to my heart, your heart, a heart, the heart, which for me evokes that relationship we have with global issues and how our health is intricately connected in how we are connected or not connected with our world. That is actually the way we become ill. We become disconnected from our world. And in Chinese medicine, we say the main way we connect is through the heart, through the spirit, anywhere, anytime. So the other thing that occurs to me about this all the time is the fact that it's a living dynamic. Our medicine is living, and each of us is living it in a unique way all the time.
Yeah, it kind of lives through us.
Yeah. So when somebody asked me if I would come together in her clinic with people who were practicing in the classical styles, the different channel systems, layers of the body, I really just thought I want it to be a living expression of the people and their poetry, so to speak, as they meet themselves and their clients in a clinic setting.
Living poetry. So tell me more about that. What would that look like?
Well, recently I heard somebody, actually, Chinese translator, speak about poetry, that poetry is the external expression of the inner world. What I think in the clinic is that our own perception, our own knowing, our own faculties, our sensations and perceptions are the truth of that moment. We think it's what the patient says, but actually it's what we receive, because that's what we can use. And that comes through us, as you're saying. And then it becomes whatever it becomes in that moment, which is a kind of poem. It's a kind of relationship between what's happening inside the clinician and what's happening in the world, which includes the person who has offered themselves for treatment. I like to say it that way. And that becomes a poem because it's a mystery that unfolds in the expression.
Absolutely. There's so much ascent. I mean, there's all the skills we have. Again, I'm kind of back to technique here.
Yeah.
But there's also that uncertainty and that unknowing anytime we walk into a clinical encounter. Because, like, who is this person? Today, we might have already seen it 20 times. Who are they now?
Right.
What do they need now? Or it could be like someone I saw this morning, first time ever. Who is this person?
Right.
How do I know that? And holding space for all of that to unfold. I want to come back to something you said about our own perception, our own knowing as having a kind of truth to it. I think you said that.
Mm.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No, that's true.
So as longtime meditators, longtime sort of Buddhist practitioner and clinician and all that, and I've only got, a smattering of that, but, enough that I am both grateful for the perception that I have. I wouldn't say I trust it completely, because it seems to me that perception, it's connected to the levers of belief and hope, right?
Yeah.
And ideology or theory. So there's all these mental constructs we have that kind of, warp what happens to our sensorium and our perception. And so, yes, there's a kind of a truth. And yes, there's kind of a distortion.
So maybe you know this, but in Buddhist cosmology of the mind and perception, there's both the yin and yang of it. There's the dhatu, the place, the eyes, and then there's the seeing, which is the qi, the different activity. So
there's the eyes and there's the seeing. Okay.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And you are correct. Much of the time, our idea about our perception is connected to our belief, but our actual perception, which is what I'm after, is free. Our actual perception is clean, clear. Trungpa Rinpoche used to call that first thought, best thought, the clear and clean perception that comes before you add those layers of belief, hope, fear, ideas, concepts, what you learned in school, what you read in a magazine, who knows? And actually, this is a huge part of my intention in the Heart in the Clinic setting, to work with people to gather their direct perception, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Because that's trustworthy.
It is completely trustworthy.
It's unfiltered.
That's the thing. 100%. So that's our real issue, right? Is finding that awareness that lies there in that moment before we add the filters.
So here's where it gets very tricky for me. I get it that there can be an initial impression, but then the filters snap in so quickly.
Mm-hmm. They do.
And then I start wondering, was that the first thought? Is that the filter? Did I catch it?
Right.
Did I miss it?
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. Wait a minute. Maybe I'll just do the 4 gates.
No, I hear you. I know. And it's a really interesting point. I think you can teach people to mind their experience for the direct perception. It's there. Yes, in the beginning, it feels like you're being dropped into this sort of morass of things that come up, and you feel like they come up all at once. But I think you can, using sensation, using meditation, you can refine your awareness so that you can detect it. And I think pulse taking is a perfect example of how clinicians from Chinese medicine for thousands of years have done it. Because when you go to take the pulse, the dominant thing is sensation.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to understand the difference between what you feel and the words you give it, because they're just words. They're not equivalent to what you feel. They're just labels. So there's the experience of feeling and knowing, and then there's the labels. And it's easy to feel the space between those two in that case because of the physicality of it.
That rings true for me.
Hmm.
And perhaps one of the reasons why the pulse is so helpful, I know for myself that there's times I've been like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. And I'll just go back to the pulse as a way to do two things. Number one, ground myself. Hello, is there something here? I'm going to try to get quiet. And two, I'm stalling for time before I have to do something or say something. No. Trust me. I have stalled for time. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I need to keep at it. I know there's something here. This is within the rubric of what we're allowed to do. It's a weird thing. Patients understand when I'm taking the pulse, we're just going to be quiet. We don't have to talk. We don't have to interact verbally. I use it to stall for time. And I bet there's a lot of you out there right now going, yep, helps me too. And what you just said about it's something that is sensate without labels. It's an attending to experience this beat, this beat, this beat, this beat. And so has a kind of invitation to come into a coherence with ourselves, with our patients, and with the moment without thought.
Yes. I love what you said, come into coherence, because we know that everything we do in Chinese medicine comes through resonance, vibration, right? The issue of coherence, I love that word, and integrity are so related. Like, how much vibration can I receive without losing the rhythm, staying in rhythm, or losing integrity, like just coming out of it completely? To me, this is the beauty of, again, taking the pulse is just like this beautiful way that we find that in that clinical moment where you think you're there to try to find out what to do, but you're actually there to achieve resonance.
Oh, hang on. I want to say that back to you, mainly because I want to make sure I remember it. My job there in clinic, my quest, as it were, thinking Monty Python all of a sudden, thing that I'm there to do. It's not to figure out what to do. It's to come into a deeper resonance. It's not to figure out what to do, but it's to come into the deeper resonance.
Because the minute you do that.
Yeah, and then the minute that you do that.
Everything's fine. The patient is already, they're going to heal. It's going to be fine.
That's a big jump. Help me out here. I can't quite make that jump. I'm still thinking there's something that is my part to do in this clinical relationship.
Your part to do is to show up 100%, all faculties online. Right? You show up 100%, your faculties are online, and you use them. What do you use them to do? You use them to be in resonance, because that resonance is the heart space. And the heart space is free, luminous, and simple. No illness gets to reside there. We know that about the heart, right? No illness resides there.
Well, I'm going to ask you in a moment about this Actually, I'm going to ask you right now. I think I might have, it's the first time I've heard it from you, but I do know this. The Zheng Qi, the upright Qi, this is also an aspect of us. Incorruptible, cannot be made ill. With us at the point of death, cannot hold illness, can only hold upright. So, seems like we're on the same page with that. How's the Zheng Qi connected to this particular aspect of the heart space?
So, in my, what I would call layered view, that happens through the primary channels. That happens through the present moment, right? So, we are beings through time, but time is somewhat circular and folded on itself. We carry in us the layer of our being that goes back thousands of years through our ancestors, right? The 8 extraordinary vessels. And then we carry in us the layer of our being that protects us from death in this life and holds those things that would threaten us. And that's the divergent channels. And then we have the layer of postnatal life where we live in the present moment, where we are functioning as beautiful, living, working, eating, pooping, singing beings. And then we have the adjuncts, you could say, of postnatal life, the low vessel system that helps us deal with the bumps in the road, the things that come along that we can't manage in the present moment, but we know we need to. And we use our postnatal resource of blood or dampness if we don't have much blood to handle that, right? And then we have the other adjunct, which is the sinew system, right? The sinews that allow us to use our structure in our world and relate with the external world in a movement way, right? So for me, that Zheng Qi is the relationship that happens on the primary channels and then relates directly with the sinews, right, to support our Wei Qi and our Yin Qi.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary. Raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code QIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Well, you just laid out a roadmap here that we could probably talk about for the next 8 hours at least. We don't have 8 hours, but we'll just kind of flit over it like a hummingbird, maybe.
Oh, that's lovely because today, actually, I finally got a picture of the hummingbird. I've been sitting on my deck with my camera stalking the hummingbirds that they fight over the beautiful blooms on the fuchsia and the begonia. And they fight, but they flit around so fast, it's hard to get them. But today I did. So,
all right.
Good day for hummingbird energy.
Yes, it is. So, first of all, thank you. Helpful to get a sense of how you see the Zheng Qi and actually relate it into the sinew channels. I often think of it as being a deeper aspect. And this is where Chinese medicine gets really weird for me because I feel like I got a grasp of certain parts of it. And then I say something in my mind like, oh yeah, the Zheng Qi, it's a deeper aspect. If you're asking me deeper in what way, I kind of go, not sure. I just think it is. But you've laid out something here with the 8 extras as being a kind of ancestral energy, time unfolded over itself, a core part of our structure, and it carries that ancestral influence. And you've got the divergences, which holds the stuff that could otherwise maybe kill us. It's like deep storage. We've talked about that back in episode number 2. Talk about how it could handle, maybe for our entire life, some things that, would otherwise take us out. Maybe later it needs to be transformed, but maybe not. We often have this idea here in the West that, whatever's on the inside, you have to transform it and make it true on the outside. And maybe, right? Maybe.
We don't say that in Taoism. I mean, in sort of this cosmology, we just say, if you get to choose, that's up to you, your curriculum, so to speak.
Yes. Well, Taoism is not salvational, but our Western culture and all of our Western religions are salvational. I think the psychology that comes out of our Western world, as much as I love C.G. Jung and all that, it's kind of salvational. I don't want to draw a conclusion that one's good and one's bad. There are roads that take you down different paths. Anyway, there's your divergences. They protect us from stuff unless we choose to take that lesson, in which case we can. Good for us. And you got the regular channels, and that's life in general. The law channels, and I want to get into this in a second. The law channels are a way of dealing with bumps in the road. Not storing it away like the divergences, but, okay, we got a little detour here or something. I want to come back to that in a second. And then the sinews, of course, being part of the Wei Qi and externally how we move into the world, and you kind of slotting the Zheng Qi into the regular channels and the sinews. I'm looking at how you've laid it out here. I'm trying to think, where else would I, when I say Zheng Qi is a deeper aspect, where would I put it? Actually, I think I'd put it in the blood, and I think I'd put it in the Qing. I think I'd put it in these kind of fluid-like aspects of us. But that's just me in this moment kind of riffing on what, we're just playing jazz here.
Well, I was thinking, when you said you were saying it felt like it was deeper aspect, I was thinking, well, that's because it relies on kidney. It relies on the will. But of course, the kidneys hold both that structural ancestral element, and they participate in the yin level, right? The heart and the kidneys are the yin layer of the body. So heart and small intestine, kidney and bladder form that yin level, where it allows us to interact on the axis of our will and our heart. So I think in that way, sure, exactly. Right? That ties it right back into that yin qi. So that makes sense from that point of view, for sure.
I can see that as well. I'm a little surprised in this conversation saying, I think the Zheng is also somehow in the blood. I found myself saying it. That feels right. I don't have any great quotes from the classics to back that up, other than a sense that the blood also holds the qi and it also holds the Shen. And there's just something about blood and fluids that has my attention these days. Something very dynamic that goes on with that.
Well, it's the medium, because of yin and yang, we can't have Zheng Qi without something to hold it.
There you go. We do need these physical substrates to.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Thank you for that detour.
Well, it's all on the topic of heart, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Because blood is the medium for the heart as well.
Well, there we are.
All of a piece.
So I want to come back to this piece that I detoured us off earlier about that if we can be in the room with our patients and in that state of coherence, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I heard something to the effect of, that's all that's needed. Did I get that right?
I think that's true. Because when you are in coherence, it means that you, as the clinician, are the instrument of that coherence. Right? It means that because you have that coherence, anything you do will be in service of that. When you're out of sync, you could say, or not in integrity, or not in coherence, or not in resonance, then anything you do will miss the mark. So, I mean, we all have this experience. We have people we meet that we cannot resonate with, that do not resonate with us. And I think in my experience, I mean, when I was younger, I would try very hard, even if that was true, to be helpful. But I think I have to admit, as I reflect on the years I have been in practice now for, gosh, 28 years now. So I would venture to say that I wasn't actually helpful to them until I told them to go see somebody else. Or my skills weren't great enough at that time to open my heart such that I could resonate with them. That goes back to your remarks about our own beliefs and perceptions being too connected. I give you a really good example from my early days in practice. I worked with a lot of pregnant women because I'm also a midwife. And so I have a lot of opinions, needless to say, and beliefs about how one should treat themselves as a pregnant person. I was very opinionated. I think many of us are. I didn't think for a minute I had to put that down in order to help somebody until the day that somebody came into my office and I had to tell them to go to the hospital because I was afraid they were going to hurt themselves and hurt their baby by what they were doing. And I knew that I did not have what it took to get through to them. And so I had to send them to the hospital. Boy, that was a sobering moment. And, reflecting on that moment, it's not that I shouldn't have sent them or that I shouldn't ever see patients who need to go to the hospital. I think it's happened to me 3 or 4 times in my career, and I don't regret that. But it showed me how I wasn't in integrity with this person, or I would have probably fired her a lot sooner in her pregnancy. Because at that point, she was ready to have the baby and having horrific problems, urinary tract problems, and basically becoming kidney infection and threatening early labor. And I was just like, I don't really want to see this happening in my office right now. Thank you very much.
I think this is part of the development. I know I've had to go through that. I don't want to make this universal and say we all have to. I don't know other people's paths, but I certainly know for myself there was this period shortly after getting out of school where I thought, this medicine's amazing, and I can do anything. I should be able to treat anybody. I should be able to help any person in some way. Yeah, that's what I said to myself. I should be able to help anyone in some kind of a way. And what I discovered through some experience very painfully gained, there are certain people I'm not going to be able to help. People that come in with very severe mental health issues, no, I can't help them. There may be acupuncturists who can. I can't. I don't have that capacity. It only took a couple of experiences that went very sideways to realize, there's things that I'm just not good at. Maybe I could develop it, but, you could also maybe teach a fish to climb a tree, but it's better if you leave the fish in the water.
But see, I would go back to saying that's a matter of resonance and coherence. Because what I would suggest is that for me, I can't speak for you, but for me in the situation I was describing, that the fear I had and my belief about her situation destabilized me. I couldn't stay in resonance with her because she was willing to push her limit past something I wasn't going to be comfortable with. Personally, my personal perception was that she was in danger. Now, in a sense, you could say I respected that by sending her to the hospital, that was an act of coherence.
Well, and this brings up for me the connection between coherence and boundaries. Because I know that over time I've gotten way, way better with my boundaries. And just describing that experience with some mentally ill people, this is back when I had a clinic at the Pike Place Market in Seattle. So I had all kinds of people walking in that door.
Yeah.
And I learned in short order to kind of read a person's energy as they were coming in the door and either invite them in or walk up and shoo them out. Yeah, I would say I got some training in coherence.
Yes.
With that kind of a thing.
And I love that you're tying that to boundaries because This is precisely one of the issues with this whole idea that we should be able to help anybody. Our hearts are open. We are compassionate. We want to be available. We do. And coherence will show you where the boundary is. And if you are not in resonance and you don't see where the boundary is, you are dangerous to yourself and others. Right? And so this is very tricky for us in this profession because we don't get the kind of training that, say, a psychotherapist or psychiatrist would get, or a social worker, or a physical therapist, people who are, other types of practitioners who are aligned with sort of frontline diagnoses, you could say. And we don't get that training. So we are actually in a position, I think, where we have to rely more on our own faculties. And we do, I think, have to do this work of honoring our own integrity, our own coherence. In other words, your own knowing, just like I was saying at the beginning, is the guideline. And if you mistrust it, and I've done this many times, I think it's very difficult to say no to people when they're suffering. There's no question. I know I wasn't helpful for those extra 4 or 5 treatments that I gave somebody who I couldn't stand being in the room with.
Well, I think this speaks something to a thing I'm going to call capacity. Whatever capacity we have to be mindful, to help with the medicine that we have, we've all got different capacities. Some people have 10-gallon buckets. They got a lot of capacity. Some of us have 2 pints. This is not a judgment, good or bad. This is about being able to match this to that. If you have the capacity, then great. You might be able to help certain kinds of people. If you don't have the capacity, it's very important to recognize it and hopefully point them in a direction to somebody who does.
Yes. And you can also develop your capacity. And if you choose, you can develop it.
Yes.
You could say some of us come from the school of hard knocks, a bitter and painful experience in developing capacity, but that's, in a way, I feel like I want to share what I've learned so that other people don't have to go through it in the same way.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to smooth the path for others, and I often wonder how much smoothing can you actually do?
It's a good question.
Some lessons are gained through difficulty, and I don't know if it's possible to not gain them without some difficulty.
I agree. I hear you. I know that. I'm bringing in my Buddhist training because it speaks directly to this, that in that way of working with the mind, we develop our capacity to use our awareness for this purpose, to be able to determine accurately when to apply pressure to ourselves and when to step aside or back off, and how to know what's appropriate. And what I realized for myself is that it's very easy in the clinic with needles because they're so powerful. Well, it's just easy. I want to say it's easy to use the book. It's easy to use the book that says, do these points and it'll be fine, right? And I guess I'm suggesting that the power that comes from knowing what's true for you kind of flips that around and says that you know more than any book in that moment about what is best.
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner. Because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital qi, and that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing as an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
Okay. So, yes, I can follow that, and there's a part of me that agrees with you if we're in that coherence. And at the same time, I know something about my own goofy mind, which will talk me into all kinds of stuff. And I'm foolish enough to often fall for it, more often than I care to admit. So it brings up the question for me of when am I in this state that we talked about earlier, a little more accessible to first impressions and being guided by coherence, and when have I bought my own line of bullshit? I think I know. I've got a feeling. I've got an intuition.
I think there are concrete ways to suss that out. I do believe that. I really do, that we can become adept at both sharing in the sort of, it is a gift to hear stories, both other people's stories and our own stories. That's a gift. And they are stories. They're just stories, which are beautiful, but they are subject to impermanence and change and the vicissitudes of one's own capacity, always. So we talk about finding in your practice the things that are unchanging, the thing that is always there for you. Recently, I've been speaking about this book, I don't know, to at least 3 or 4 people in the last couple of weeks. A Zen teacher whose name I can't remember, but the book I can remember. It's called From Novice to Master, an ongoing lesson in the extent of my own stupidity. And he and he says that his breath is his only treasure, right? It's his only treasure because it's the only thing that's always there. So I think that is the navigation that is so we are given the opportunity to navigate that with every client because we listen and we're there and we open and we hear it. And when we go to give a treatment, we have to act from the place of presence, from our own faculties, not from our story about their story, which isn't our story, and not from our story, which isn't their story. It's like, well, yeah, okay. That's like we fill the room with birdsong, with all the story. And then we still have to water the plants. We still have to find out where the roots are. What do they need? Right? We don't get distracted by the 16 different songs that we hear.
Again, I am back to that question of honing in on that coherence.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some ways, in those moments, and I've had those moments. I think we've all had those moments, when you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like skiing difficult terrain. You're a little over your skis, or a little back on your skis. Oh, I'm in the fall line and I'm completely weightless. Turn, turn, turn. There it is. And then you catch a little whatever and you're off again, right? Oh, there's a story. It rhymes with your story. It makes you think of another patient. Whoop, where'd I go? So it's a constant process of honing attention.
Yes, I think it is. I think it is. And this is why I love working with students. I so enjoy working in that setting with many people because of that, because it is the challenge to hone the attention, both my own and the people in the room. And I think it's how we practice together. I think the other thing I said to you when we were talking about having this conversation is, and I think this is an important piece that we don't talk much about, is that our medicine and our cultural situation is hierarchical. or I don't want to use that dirty word, patriarchal, but it's hierarchical. And I think that medicine, real medicine, medicine that comes from presence, has no hierarchy, that it operates in a what I like to call power with modality. So the power is with that coherence. And then you ride that power through that situation, just as if you're on a horse or skis or a surfboard in a new and dynamic environment. That's exactly what you're in. You're in a dynamic environment and you're in a power with situation, because if you try to do power over, you will get knocked over, most likely.
Or you'll knock something over.
Or you'll knock something over. Yeah.
It can go the other way. It can go either way. Yes.
Right. Can go either way. Exactly. But I do completely agree. It is a honed skill. It's a refinement of our attention that, at least for me, when I first was treating people, for me, it one-on-one is native. You know, like I get what it means to focus with one other person, but to focus with a lot going on or other people, this is more difficult. And you could say in our minds, there's always a lot of people. As we get older, we're in this sort of constant relationship with a lot of people, unless we can figure out how to discern where the coherence is in that moment. Where is the presence leading us in that moment?
Talk to me more about that.
Well, this has also been one of the things that I think about a lot, about the fact that the heart in Chinese thinking, Chinese medical thinking, is a space. It's empty. It's not full. It's alive, but it's not active. It's present. And I think that quality is present in all living things all the time. We just don't notice it. And if we begin to notice it, there's this great guy, William Bryant Logan, in this book called Dirt, the Earth. And he talks about Moses and the burning bush. And he says, Moses sees the bush as it really is. It's burning, it's alive. This is, I think, the nature of things when our heart is truly open. This is how we see things. They're just alive. And we follow that living quality. It's like the light of that living quality makes everything so clear and so bright.
So we're following the light of that living quality. We're not following our constructs and stories about it. We're following that light illuminating from the bush.
Yes. And I would suggest to you that that light emanates from exactly what we've been talking about, from our own resonance. That's the place where our feet touch the ground, where our life force meets the people in our clinic, or the people in our family, or the people in the other cars, or the people at the grocery store. Like at any point, that's plausible that we meet it. And that then whatever we meet there's healing that happens through that meeting. And that meeting could be in a treatment room, and it could be at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
You could be using needles, or you could be using words, or you could be using movement. You could be using a musical instrument.
Or just silence in the presence.
Or silence.
It adds potency to our work, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking earlier about I'm using air quotes here, use the book and needles. And, you can do a lot of good in the world. You can get a long way. Mm-hmm. You can actually get a long way. You really can.
There are a lot of good books out there.
And a lot of good books. There's a lot of good ideas. There's a bunch of stories and ideas about acupuncture in East Asian and Chinese medicine. And there's some damn good stories. Mm-hmm. And they're useful. Mm-hmm. And then there's this other thing that we're talking about, a kind of potency that comes out of meeting in that place of coherence. I think of the character Li.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is often translated as patterning, but also as coherence. I often think of it as coherence. It's like the patterns you see in the wind across a field of wheat, or the lines in a piece of jade, grain, and wood. The thing that connects, the patterns that connect. And I think there's kind of a wave, almost watery sense to the experience of coherence as I have come to understand it, which I think brings us, as my friend Stacy Wickham would say, we've walked that dog around the block. It brings me back to thinking of the Zheng as also having a connection into the blood.
Yes. And I just think there's value in at every step of the way in terms of what we're offering people and how we employ all these amazing things that come down to us through our lineage of medicine. And I like to say we're always making medicine in this moment. And we could be making medicine that causes things to happen that we didn't imagine or wish for, knew were going to happen, as opposed to the medicine that has, in theory, an outcome that we can determine.
Say more about that.
Well, my issue with, say, the books is not so much that they're books. I love books and I love all of that, but that people come to mistake the experience someone else had for the one they're about to create.
Right. I'm here at your clinic because my friend so-and-so sent me here and her back pain is gone, so now you're going to make my digestion better.
Right.
Which actually is the tacit agreement that we all have. That's also true. We're in business to help people. Ideally, we've helped people and they're sending their friends to us now and family and people that they care about. And there is a tacit agreement with medicine that we're here to help. And it's supposed to be repeatable, and it's supposed to be logical, and it's supposed to be a step-by-step, very much based in knowledge. And yes, there is an aspect of that. I would not deny it. I would say there is an aspect of that. And then there's this other thing that I think we're talking about right now. You've had this. I think people listening to this, sometimes you put a few needles in, or you'll come back in the room and people will tell you about an experience that they had that, like, totally unrelated to your diagnosis and to them, often not to us, not unrelated to the thing they came in with.
Right.
I think that's very surprising for folks, that sometimes something very profoundly will shift. They walk out completely different. They may still have some back pain. They may still have the troubles they have with their spouse, but they're kind of different.
Yes. And again, I think that's one of our gifts to our culture and our world at this time, that we operate with the majority of the world is unseen.
Oh, I love that. The majority of the world is unseen. Yeah. We like to think it's so seen. Well, look, I got this little device in my hand. I can see everything in the world. So I hear you say the majority of the world is unseen. And I think not only is it unseen, but we're often so blind to how much is unseen.
Right. We forget. But when we offer ourselves to the process of being, to the present, to the coherence that's available, then that gets taken into account automatically through our sensations, through our experience. We take in the unseen world because we can't help it. That's how we're set up. So if we don't dominate ourselves with our beliefs and our thoughts, and we allow that sensation to come into our experience, then we have the power of that mostly unseen world behind us, which is extraordinary. And that's what some people call miracles, of course, when that happens.
Well, you've just given me another leg to stand on, so to speak. Because we were talking earlier in the conversation about perception and how, our mind can muck with our perception. There's that initial, and then the story machine starts. If you can catch it before that and maybe abide with it a bit, there's that. And then there's the mind that's sort of caught and captured. All right, we're talking about that. To invite in, as you just did, that so much is unseen, and to bring that into the mix of all of this. And I can't tell you why, but it's somehow a little bit reassuring.
I think it's reassuring for everyone because everyone knows that. Again, probably you've been hearing about this from Margot, the master and his emissary,
Yes.
Ian McGilchrist, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is representing pretty much that because we've been dominated by the left brain, which thinks that logic should be the answer to everything, that we've lost the recognition that, in fact, that logic is not the best organizer of our experience and not always the best leader in every situation.
And not necessarily accurate either.
And not necessarily accurate. So by working in the way that we've been talking, you're marshaling, oh gosh, and I'm not going to remember the name. There's a term for when you get both hemispheres of the brain synchronized and working at the same time. I can almost picture it, but I can't quite say it. I think it's like hemispheric synchronized something. It happens sometimes with music. You can entrain both sides of the brain into that state.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what we're doing when we practice acupuncture this way. We're actually marshaling both sides of the brain. We're actually allowing in that unseen felt world. And that gives us just enormous ballast, enormous capacity.
Ballast. That's a great word. It's what keeps ships upright in storms.
Yeah.
Well, like I said a few minutes ago, we could probably talk for 8 hours. You laid out this whole thing with these different channels, and we just may have to come back, talk about that more sometime. Would you do that? Would you be up for that?
I would totally be up for that.
All right. Somewhere down the road, we're going to come back and dig into that. But for today, coherence, presence, all within that soup of the unknown. Isn't that a curious way to practice medicine?
It's a beautiful way. It's the ancient way, founded in long before there was the kinds of books and science we have.
Mm-hmm.
The human being was the resource.
Well, and we still are when you come right down to it.
And we still are.
We still are. We've got a lot of great tools in the world. We've got a lot of great things that we've made and capacities for extending our senses in many directions. And yet, in this moment, with this breath, with whoever we're with, we don't do so well without it an iPhone, do we? Are you teaching this? Are you doing classes on this or sharing this in some way? Or just yakking with me on the podcast?
Yeah, so in September, I'm going to be meeting with people, hosting a group of people in the clinic for a week on this topic and in this way, with the 5-channel system, with a group of people. And all of us are going to work with presence, work with meditation, and also work with the pulse and work with diagnosis. We're going to layer it all in together as a group and practice in that way. So
cool. So there's some ongoing kinds of work you're doing with this.
Yeah.
All right. I'll make sure that your contact information is on the show notes page. So people can reach out if this rings a bell for them.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So fun. As always.
Well, my friend, yeah, it's always a delight to hang out with you and see where our noodling about medicine takes us. Yeah, so much fun. And I always come away a little more appreciative. I think that's the word. Of this really unique medicine that's come down to us that we get to be a part of, add to.
Yes.
And hopefully pass along. It's very much a living presence.
Yes. And I love that you do this all the time with your podcast. It's great. It's a great thing.
All right. Well, until the next time then.
Okay.
I so appreciate a conversation that opens up a field of inquiry, that leaves me with more potent questions, that enlivens my curiosity and has me considering that moment just before the mind jumps in. And there was something in this conversation about how if the body does not have enough blood, then it will lean on dampness. That makes me think about moments in my life when I've settled for something that was actually not so good for me because I could not get, or I did not have the courage to go after what I really wanted and might have been more supportive and nourishing to me. This helps to explain how our bodies can hold on to substances or stances that are not optimal, but we get habituated to it. And so healing is in part providing what the body really needs, and in part disentangling it from what it's grown used to. Homeostasis, it doesn't always work in our favor. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.